I invented math magic blocks in 1982, and here is one of the original math magic blocks. This is like a valuable thing. It's just a little junky piece of plastic. It was invented by the Tupperware Corporation, and it has a little seam on the side so you can pop it open. And what I realized is, hey, I could take these as blocks and I could fill them. Some of them, of course, have lots of stuff inside, and some just have a little bit inside. But that's the way I was able to get the exact weight that was necessary for the blocks to work. Well, my best friend has pointed out, forget math magic blocks. Don't try to sell the blocks. Write the book about the making of math magic blocks. Because there's so many delightful twists and turns in this process, which began in 1982, that I think it actually could make a book. Well, I haven't got the whole book planned out, but there are definitely some highlights. And just as a tantalizing one, back in 1982 when I invented math magic blocks, I was teaching at a high school. I was teaching anatomy and physiology, and I had a student, in fact I've had thousands of students over the years, and every once in a while the name of a student will, Matt Gibson or Bryce Lundberg or someone will just flit through my mind. Well, I went to a math conference, Northern California Math Teachers Conference, to try selling these blocks. And 2 days before I went to this conference, the name of one of my students flitted through my head, Vicki Knoll. I don't know why, just thought about her. So I'm setting up at this conference 2 days later, and this woman walks up to me that looks vaguely familiar. And she says, you were my teacher back at Lodi High School. In fact, you were one of my inspirations to go into teaching, and I've been teaching for 24 years, and I love it. My name is, well, it used to be, yeah, you got it, Vicki Knoll. I mean, that's just magical. Well, but let's go back a bit here. After I invented math magic blocks, they sat on a shelf gathering dust for 20 years. And then we had a problem at our school because the teacher who had been teaching AP chemistry decided she didn't want to teach it anymore. So rather than let the program die, I said, well, hey, I know some chemistry. I'll teach AP chemistry. But I knew I was not first and foremost a chemistry teacher, so I signed up for an AP summer workshop. But before I went to this workshop, I realized I'm going to be the dumbest kid in the class at this workshop because these guys are going to be red hot. They're going to be chemistry majors and chemistry teachers that are focused on that. It's going to be so embarrassing. So I decided to take along my set of math magic blocks with the idea that this way, at least they won't think I'm a total idiot because I've got something that's kind of a cool little toy. Well, to my amazement, they loved it. I mean, there were 5 other teachers in this class, and they were all saying, you got to manufacture this thing. Bring it to the market. It's with math magic blocks, my students will understand the math of chemistry so much better. Well, that was the kick I needed to get me to actually think about, hey, maybe I really could make these guys as a product. So, it was in the back of my head, back burner. I started working on it, getting a little fancier, closer to maybe a production. But I realized, I really should patent this, because if I do all this work and then somebody sees it and steals the idea, then my work will be worth nothing. So, being a high school teacher who's been working for 40 years, I'm in a privileged position. I get 2 class reunions most years. I get the 10th reunion and I get the 20th reunion. So I was invited to the 10th reunion, and we're at this fancy hotel and, just sitting around talking to all my former students. And this guy named Ryan and I started talking. He hadn't been my student, but he knew me from Edison High School. And he actually had been a physics teacher, which is what I was. And he had quit teaching physics because he had been treated really poorly, unconscionably, by the school that he worked at, and decided he was going to become a patent attorney. So he said he was working as, I guess, kind of an intern for this guy. And I mentioned, oh, well, I'm thinking about getting my math magic blocks patented. And he said, well, why don't you give me what you got, if you have like a example of it, and I'll take it in and show my boss and see if he might want to talk to you about it. So I did that, and it turned out that Andrew Fortney, PhD, patent attorney, loved the blocks. And this is the pattern I've seen over and over again. People find out about math-magic blocks and they're like, wow, those are really cool. How could I help you? I mean, over and over again. Well, in this case, Andrew helped me big time because he was so interested in these blocks. I mean, I think patent attorneys have some challenging intellectual work, but I think a lot of it must be pretty dry and boring details. But this thing was fun. It was sprightly. It was creative. So he really liked the idea and basically said, I will file your patent papers. I will get the patent for you for free. Now that's a many $1,000 proposition normally, although it turned out that it was more than many thousand, because Andrew filed all the papers, and then he waited, and the U.S. Patent Office ended up sending him back the announcement that he was not going to accept the patent because they had already been patented. Well, that was highly disappointing. So he had done a patent search and had not found the very thing that I have here. So he was really upset and decided that he would fly back to Washington, D.C. And I gave him a set of the blocks to take with him, and he would sit down with the patent examiner and explain to her in person why these things were in fact original and that there had been no previous patent and that we should be granted a patent.